telling the truth, and we've basically become the modern Paul Revere transmission of this republic. That's why it's so critical for all of you out there watching and listening.
This is AM 730 KEP, West Coast, Murray, Arkansas, Memphis, Tennessee.
Get ready for the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. For the next hour, we will forget about the black man, we will forget about the white man, and we will deal with the human. Pastor Andre Guy is here to answer your questions from a biblical perspective. He's an humble man who's on a mission to bring the church together with a Bible and a dictionary. He will tell you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help him God. And now, here's Pastor Andre Guy.
Well, good evening, members and the rest of the world. Welcome to another edition of The Truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. I'm Andre Guy Reed. Hey, Juwan Burton. For the next hour, let's forget about the black man. Let's forget about the white man. Let's deal with the human from a Bible perspective, if you will. Feel free to call in at 901-452-3094 or 901-324-7490. For the comments, suggestions, agreements, or even disagreements we may have, we can agree to disagree without being disagreeable. Okay, this is the Truth Radio Show brought to you by the Truth Radio Network. We do everything from sex, race, religion, politics, and even sometimes sports from a Bible perspective. Whatever we discuss, amen. Whatever we discuss, at the end of the day, God has the final authority. Yes, sir. And what does God want? I believe it's going to save us out. Y'all got a special show. Ooh. Special show today. Dr. SHARON Griffin. Give a double applause. For someone of her stature in the studio. About 2 years I've been trying to get this show. You know, they have a thing, Touche Progress, that he does where a lot of big wheels in the city, the politicians and pastors and community activists and laymen, they come together to set up strategy to help our city, help our communities. You know, that's why I first saw Dr. Griffin. And Dr. Griffin gave a testimony, and I was just spellbound. I said, wait a minute, man, am I really hearing what I'm hearing? And then when I found out what her position was, she's movie star pretty, y'all. Movie star pretty. I mean, you tune in, you know, tell about, go to WMQM 1600 AM YouTube channel, and you not only can hear her, you can see her, and she's classy. You know, she's classy. Well, not only did she have a powerful testimony, we're definitely going to hear that, but then I found out her position, she was, at that time, we were at the iZone school, right? Yes. Right. And then she's an educator, and I was listening to the ideas and the success rate that she had, and I wondered, why is all she ever got is doing what she does? Tell me what you do, Dr. Griffin.
Well, first, thank you for this tremendous opportunity to be here. And I do know that this show has a biblical background. So let me first say, only what you do for Christ would last. And I'm sitting here 27 years later as an educator. Started out as a teacher. For 8 years, I taught biology, chemistry, and physics. I thought that I wanted to be a nurse. And so all of my background in college, went to Lamorne College, was in the sciences. But I volunteered at the Boys and Girls Club. And there was such a tremendous need for us to just give back to the community. And at that time, Lamorne Garden was where many of those students was from. Yeah. And so I had the opportunity to not only teach many of those students just about being a good person, but they taught me so much, and that was, you need to give back. And even after my work study ended, I couldn't stop going to the Boys and Girls Club. And I wanted to give that first testament to the work that I do, because I've been called to do this work. This is not something that I chose to do. And I said that to say that many people don't understand that education now is in a space where it's not just about math and English and science and social studies, but schools are now having to be homes away from home. And even though we have to close those gaps, and it seems like testing and what students do on testing is the way, it is so much more than that. And so as we think about my role and all of the roles that I've had, I've been a teacher, I've been an assistant principal. I've been a principal. I worked at the district level. I served with Superintendent Dorsey Hobson as the chief of schools. And now I sit in the seat as the ASD superintendent for turnaround work across the entire state. And I have 30 schools.
Dr. Griffin.
Yes.
We see on the news, we hear a lot of different schools where they have violence and failing schools, rats, roaches, and snakes all together. But the school system that you superintendent over, you take the worst of the worst.
Absolutely. So our 30 schools, and across the state, we hit about 1,700 schools back in 2012 that the state looked at the standardized testing process.
These are children in failing school.
Right.
And are they failing there?
Well, we have our challenges, and I don't like to say failing because remember, the more you hear something and the most that you hear, that's what you begin to believe.
You become that.
And so I don't want to say failing schools, but we are in need of improvement. But what I tell people is the failing status that our schools gained was based on test scores. And you can't only look at the quantitative, the numbers behind the testing, without digging deeper into the root cause. And what I found, even as a principal of a school that was failing, that in 3 years, it came off the list and became a national case study that people across these United States came to see that school, Airways Middle. It was an epic goal game school back in 2008. People couldn't believe what happened.
That's what I can't figure out, though, Doc. What they did at Airways,
right?
Why did you do that in every school?
Well, it takes training. Remember now, turnaround work and the challenges. You have to understand that turning around a school is not easy. It is not easy.
It didn't get there overnight.
And it becomes your life.
Yeah.
And so for 5 years that I spent at Airways Middle School, and even now, which is 13 years later, I sit in this seat. Turnaround work is very hard to get people to commit and to people to understand that it's not just a job, but it is a calling. And when you work with children who, for whatever reason, have experienced adverse childhood experiences, they've experienced challenges that, they've witnessed violence, they've even participated in violence. That's not what people want to do. And they're not drawn to it.
That's my spirit about you, is that I see that you have that passion.
Right.
For education, but overall as a whole, I see so much of that missing for our young children, and it scares me that this public school system is warehousing them. But we'll get back to that. I gotta get to this.
Okay.
Now look, until she finishes this testimony, I'm gonna give y'all the number, but don't call. 452-3094 or 324-7490. I'm gonna see if she can give it to us in 5 minutes or less. Or if she has to go longer, that's fine. Give me the testimony how you got here.
So I would paraphrase my testimony, and I first want to say that I believe in leading by example. And I am a native Memphian, been here my entire life, graduated from Hamilton High School, but I'm also the youngest of 11, 9 girls and 2 boys. And my testimony, and I would always often ask God, why am I doing this difficult work? Because even when I was a teacher at a difficult school, and even when I was a principal at a difficult school and went to the district to turn around difficult schools, I was like, God, haven't I proven that shouldn't my last few years be easy? But I had to think back to who I am and how my whole life came to be. My life started very challenging, and I'll begin by saying it started with a lady telling me a story my whole life. And I heard this story so much that I guess it didn't become relevant until I began to question God on why is my job assignment so hard and continue to be so hard. But then I began to think about this story that started with this lady telling me that she had a pain in her stomach. And the pain was so severe that she went to the physician to see what was happening. And the physician checked her out. And when they checked her out and couldn't find anything the first time, and because she stayed in pain continuously, she went back again. And the doctors and the physicians eventually told her, and this was back in the late 60s, that she had, unfortunately, a tumor in her stomach. And this tumor was in a place that was inoperable. And being in a place that was inoperable, the lady was given very few options because surgery was not one. But the physician said, you know what, we'll take a chance. And if you decide that you want to have surgery, just know that if we hit a vein that's very close to this tumor, you could bleed to death. Well, the lady, who was a strong lady of faith, said, let me go home and talk to my family about it. She began to tell me that she went home, talked to her family, and her family said, well, let's think about that. I don't know if you would want to have that surgery down the table because you could bleed to death. She told the physician no. Physician called her back a couple of days later and said, you know what? We've discovered that there is a medication across the nation that people are using and taking that shrinks tumors. However, if you take this medication, the side effects are horrible. Your hair could fall out, you can't be around your family, you could be radioactive. But guess what? In the end, tumors were known to shrink. The lady said, let me go home, think about it, talk to my family, strong lady of faith, talk to her family. She decided, let me go ahead and take this medication. To make a long story short, the lady continued to tell me that she took this medication for about 9 or 10 weeks, hoping like the other patients that her tumor would shrink at the end. Physician brought her back in, gave her some more tests, did x-rays. She said a physician walked back out, came back in, 2 or 3 more people, did more x-rays. The third time, the physician came in and brought some additional people with him. She remembered this day so vividly and shared with me that the physician said to her, ma'am, we're just puzzled. We don't know what's going on, but instead of your tumor getting smaller from all of this medication you've taken, it's actually doubled in size. Well, the lady began to say that as the physicians began to talk to her and continue to examine her to see what was going on, they asked her to stay in the hospital another 2 days. She said on day 2, the physician came in with 5, 6, 7, 8 people. They stood around the bed, puzzled, and said to her, ma'am, we don't know how to tell you this. But we're so sorry, and we're so sorry that the medication was so strong and that you got so sick, and it didn't do what we thought it was going to do. But we have some very tragic news to tell you. Ma'am, instead of you having a tumor from the beginning, you never had one, and you're actually pregnant.
Wow.
And instead of the tumor getting smaller, it grew because you have a baby inside of you. But what we're saying to you is the medication was so strong, the medication was so devastating that we really, really, really strongly suggest that you don't have this child. Remember that I said this was a lady of strong faith, and of course she was totally against not having her child. But the physicians began to share with her that if you do have this child, because of the medication and the catastrophic side effects, this child will never be able to talk, to walk, to think, and will be severely retarded. You already have 10 babies. Why would you want to have a number 11? And so the lady began to say that, no, I'm going to think about this. Let me go home and talk to my family. She went home, talked to her family, prayed about it, and decided that she would not have her child. And the reason why this story resonated with me, and the reason why I began to question God and ask why are my assignments, why are they so hard and seem so challenging, is because the more I thought about this story and the more I heard it my entire life, this story resonated with me because that child that was never supposed to talk, think, walk, and or speak and be retarded, that child is me. And so my mother and my father, who were strong people of faith, explained to me, you are here and you are special. And the challenges that you face growing up, they're not going to keep you down. And so I began to accept that. And I know that all of the challenges that I face right now are no different than my students whose challenges are hard. My environment was tough. I was never supposed to make it. There are people who tell the children that I work with, your mama no good, your daddy no good, they in jail, you will never be anything. Well, that's what statistics told the physicians about me, that I was not supposed to think, walk, talk. I got 3 degrees from accredited universities. And so don't tell me first about the power of God. And when you belief trumps talent. And so sometimes the very kids that I work with, I have to plant the seed that you can be better. Even before I talk about math, even before I talk about science, I am sharing to children, look at me. I am a living example of what belief and hard work, doesn't mean you don't have to work hard, doesn't mean your heel won't be hard to climb, but I tell them, are there any smooth mountains? There absolutely is not. And so I live and breathe by that. I want to be a living example for what I know kids can and will do. And guess what? If you raise the bar high or low, kids reach it. I choose to keep it high.
901-452-3094 or 901-324-7490. Dr. Sharon Griffin, y'all just heard Q did it do to you what it did to me.
I'm just saying, wow.
Wow. And then if you see the passion that she has, and Dr. Griffin, with all that passion and love and that expertise that you have, and I maybe I could be wrong, but I think y'all got to be a battle with that Shelby County school system. It's to the point, I don't want to be cynic, but I am concerned children being warehoused, and it started to seem like that. Am I way off base, or am I just being too pessimistic? Give me some encouragement. Tell me what you think.
Well, let me say this. I was with Shelby County Schools for 26 years. I've only been with the state for a year. And what I strongly believe in, what I said even when I took this job, is that charity begins at home and spreads abroad. We should not be disconnected. This is not a SCS versus ASD thing. These are all of our students. Every single child in this city deserves the best. And it is up to us to decide that we're going to give it to them. So I've been in communication. I've been talking with the superintendent, interim superintendent, Joyce Ray, that's sitting in the seat to say, we have to get this right for kids in our city. Because think about it. If our kids make bad choices, if unfortunately they happen to be incarcerated, jail is not divided by SCS, Briarcrest, Bartlett, Millington. You have one pod. And so what I'm saying is, it is up to us to come together to figure this out, to make sure that all of the resources are aligned to needs. I shouldn't have to be failing to get the best for my kids. Now, I was able to garner additional resources. I was able to get philanthropic support. I was able to get people in the community to come into the schools, but it wasn't until they failed first. So the message I want the constituents and people in radio land to know is, we have to get into schools and see what's going on. We can't wait until something happens negative. Every time I see a student on the news, I ask myself, what did we not do? How did we fail that student? Because kids aren't innately born bad. If they make bad choices, that doesn't mean I'm a bad person. We have to figure out what do we need to do to make sure that every single need that they have is being met. And so we have to take some responsibility that when we see kids and issues and things happening in our city, what do we not do? Because guess what? We got an end for them.
How do we put you in for superintendent of the school system?
Well, I am the ASD superintendent.
That's right, you're the ASD.
I am the ASD superintendent.
We need ASD to be everything. Look, we're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we got Dr. Sharon GRIFFIN out. She's here, 452-901-452-3094 or 901-324-7490.
All right.
Are you looking for affordable auto, home, life, renters, or barrier insurance? Insurance and Memphis shop multiple carriers to find the best rate for our customers. Have an issue with driver license or SR22 filing? Insurance and Memphis has a market just for you. When the other says no, Insurance and Memphis says yes. Insurance and Memphis is located at 3556 Hickoryhill Road at 901-217-8022. Call your local authorized progressive agent, Sheena. Call her mama, she can be a free quote, and you'll be glad you did.
All right, y'all, the phone line's open. The other guy and Black Conservative and Unforgetful and you guys, y'all have questions. Here's your chance. There's somebody that works in the Shelby County school system and the educator. And,
Yes.
with your program being that you take them at the bottom 5%, what is the difference that you do within your program to get them to that 25%?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is be transparent and honest about where we are. And I wholeheartedly, as a former teacher, you cannot turn around a school without the right teachers and leaders in those particular schools. Turnaround work is so difficult. I often like to compare it to the trauma center. And one thing that we have to understand is a lot of times teachers and leaders, the salaries that they make, it's not as high as, in my personal opinion, it needs to be. And if you go to any school, about approximately 10 to 20% of the teachers' salaries, they give back to their classrooms. They make sure that they buy supplies.
I've seen that.
When teachers need to take them on field trips, they don't leave one student behind. They pay and they even give them spending money. So what I'm saying to you is, I think first we have to understand that because turnaround work is so difficult, that we have to make sure that our teachers and our leaders are not only trained, but that we're compensating them for the difficult work. Remember now, I know you've been to a physician before. When you go to the trauma center, it doesn't cost the same as when you go to your regular doctor's office visit.
Exactly.
And so we have to compensate people for the difficult work. That's number one. Number two, we have to make sure that the community understands that the school needs you to be a part of what's happening in that building on a daily basis.
And that's a major thing. Now,
Absolutely.
901-452-3094, 901-324-7490.
Well, we had a caller, but he didn't want to come on the air. He just wanted me to tell y'all he love everything you're doing. Keep up the good work.
Okay.
And just keep on doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Shake it, Jake.
Hey, that was Carlo Chip.
Oh, that was Carlo. Carlo just shy. Okay, I'll take it back on Carlo. Yeah. And you know, you give me a ray of hope. I thank God that you give me a ray of hope because I'm really concerned about our children and our community. But my ministry is in an urban area.
Okay.
So my boots on the ground dealing with this. You know, at the end of the day, when I get through with opinions and my ideology and my thoughts, these kids are dealing with real life issues every day.
Absolutely.
You know, and I go home to a safe home, to a warm place, and they might have a home to go to, but it's not always safe, it's not always warm. And so when you throw in the fact that they're not being educated or the structure for education, not as it should be, it's a recipe for failure.
Yeah, and I think we have to hone in on, this is 2019, and for 100 years, over 100 years, we've been trying to do it the same way. We don't drive cars the same way. You know, we don't fly airplanes the same way, but yet and still, we want to educate students the same way. Every child is not the same. And so what I say to students is, what is your passion? It's not always college. And so we have to be okay to say, when I was in school, I graduated from Hamilton High School in 1986.
Right.
Unfortunately, you was either on a college path or a technical path.
And we had vocational schools back then.
But at that time, you were seen as a Plan B student if you went to vocational school. And I know a whole lot of people who do vocational work that make a whole lot more money than people with degrees. Now, I'm not saying don't go to college or don't go to whatever you want to do. I don't want a child to feel bad because I want you to do what you love, whether it's fixing hair, whether it's working with computers, whether it's graphic design. There is money to be made. And the first thing we have to do early is identify what is that child's expertise. And let's help them magnify it and embark on making sure they get certified or move further into that career.
Tricky question. What about the vouchers? What you think about it? Yes or no?
Well, you know, I think the vouchers are a way for us to address it. Every school be a high quality school. What I have to say about vouchers is, if the school at the corner in my neighborhood is top and it's offering the quality education that I want for my child, I don't have to worry about a voucher. So what I'm saying to our schools and to our teachers and leaders is, I want every school in the ASD to be a high quality school that I would send my own children to. That's my bar. People ask me, well, it seems like you're always complaining and you're always trying to find something to fix. If it's not good enough for my child, it's not good enough for any child. And if that school at the corner is not good enough, it's got to get better. And you need to have options as a parent. You're a taxpayer. That's your right. You shouldn't have to settle. And so my thing about vouchers is, I'm not worried about that because I am striving to make every single school in the ASD a top quality school. And if it's not, I'm not afraid to call it out. That's one thing I'm not afraid to do. I'm not afraid to make changes because guess what? An adult does not feel worse than a child that we failed. And so an adult, you can find another job, but a child whose parent, they send those children to us, it is our job to make sure that they get everything they need. And if they're not, it's criminal. And we got to be held accountable for that.
How many schools you got in the ASD?
I have 30 schools. I have 28 in Memphis and 2 in Nashville. I have 15 elementaries, 10 middle, and 5 high schools.
How many schools do they have in the Shelby County school system?
They have over 100, close to 200 schools. Wow. Yeah, close to 200.
But at least you're making a dent in the pie.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We are. And you know, like, again, it's not us against them. These are all of our children, and our kids are so mobile. They move a lot. That's why I don't want it to be any difference. We have to make sure we're addressing the needs of kids all over the city. Because if I'm not in South Memphis, I might move to North Memphis. You still deserve a high quality education and a teacher who's going to challenge you at every level. If I move to Whitehaven, I still deserve a high quality school. And so what I'm trying to do is remove the barriers that this is us against them. I've talked to the mayors, I've talked to the sheriff, I've talked to the police director, because if we don't get this right holistically and comprehensively, then how are we going to increase and support Memphis in the next phase of this work?
You know, I remember when I sent my daughter to Mars, to the charter school.
Yes.
And I purposely sent her there because in Mars, they were able to pray in the morning, at lunch, and at the football game, because they were charter school. In ASD, can y'all bring God into your job program, or is that?
Well, you know, we are a public portfolio district, right? So you gotta abide by the rule. When I work for the state, I don't care how much power I am. Correct, it is a state. When I'm working for the state, I gotta follow the state rules. Absolutely. While I'm on the state's business. Absolutely. So are they able to bring God into it all? How do you do that? Well, we don't holistically and publicly like they do in faith-based schools. Okay. But I do want the faith-based organizations in Memphis to become a part of our schools. We have partnerships with local churches in the neighborhood. We have partnerships with philanthropic, faith-based organizations who provide wraparound support services. They read to the kids. Agape has a strong base in our schools where they're in our apartments, in the neighborhoods, communities, and schools. We have a partnership with them. So while our teachers are trying to teach, I have partners that are addressing some of the social and emotional needs of our students, because I think that's important. What about our younger children learning about the homosexual or gay lifestyle? Where we at with that? Well, and we want to accept everyone. You know, no one chooses to be any certain way. You know, I just think that we have to help our kids be tolerant and our students to accept everyone. And that is, we're teaching tolerance. You know, I'm not like you, you're not like me. So, you know, that doesn't mean I'm all right and you're all right. But I want students to understand that we live in a society where people are different. And we have to be able to accept it. We have to be tolerant. Right. Even as a Christian in my faith, absolutely. When I run across people that don't believe as I believe, or don't live as I live, it doesn't tell me to make them my enemy. It actually tells me to make them my opportunity. Absolutely. Because what I'm living is so good, like you said, with the school system. Yes. If it's Jesus that I'm living for, if it's so true and good, I got to force it on nobody. They'll come ask me about it. Correct. You know, and that's all you got to do is live in and stuff. But you have to be tolerant of resistance of anybody. You know, even if you're against homosexuality, they have the right to live. They have the right to prosper in America. You know, the whole gamut and stuff. I'm careful. Right. With the laws and stuff, but that's a whole nother ball game. Yeah. What help do you need from parents? Okay. When it comes to schools? Well, I'm gonna say this. Hold on. Got a pause for the call. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
I am the most brilliant thinker and political philosopher.
Hello, Black.
Good afternoon.
How you doing, sir?
Good afternoon to your guest.
He's talking to you, Dr. Griffin.
Hello, how are you?
I'm better than I deserve. Okay. You know, I got a bone to pick with you. You were doing pretty good there. But now I got a bone to pick with you. Okay. I thought you was on the right track and you kind of got derailed there. Okay. You know, as Christians, we don't even tolerate, the Bible tells us not to even tolerate homosexual in the church. If a brother or sister be a homosexual, not even to eat a meal with that person. And even
wait, let me help out on this. She's not talking as a Christian, she's talking as an educator.
I know what you're talking about. I have an erudite mind. I'm a man of much learning. I know what you're talking about. You don't have to inform me.
The mouth will say anything.
I didn't call him to be informed. I call him to correct the wrong here. Look, okay.
You're going to correct Dr. Sharon Griffin.
We don't have
Dr. Griffin told me, don't worry about it. She got this. Okay.
You know, we don't have to tolerate their immoral lifestyle. No more than we're tolerating a person who lies all the time. You know? So the idea is that, and then you said, well, they wasn't, it wasn't their choice. Yes, it was. If Little Johnny wasn't dressed up like Little Sue, that was Little Johnny's choice to do that. So we need to let Little Johnny know that you is not Sue. You're a little boy, and I don't want my boy to think that it's acceptable, okay, with Little Johnny being Little Sue, so Little Johnny is not Little Sue. Now, I don't want him to harm Little Johnny, don't take them, back to the woodshed.
Right.
But he needs to know the difference between right and wrong, good and bad, and be able to discriminate between good and evil. You see, this idea that we got to tolerate immorality, sinful activity, that's crazy. No more than you tolerate somebody breaking in your house, a thief. What we need to do.
Now let Dr. Griffin go. You want to respond? She said she'll pass on.
That's just that liberal feeling.
But Black, I think, let me ask you a question, Black. You're on your job.
That's superimposing.
On your job, if you had a homosexual working with you, how would you handle him?
Work related. I'm there to do my
work
job.
related?
I'm there to do my job. I ain't there to be your friend. I'm not there.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Didn't you just say as a Christian all the stuff you said you supposed to do to him?
No. Let's make a subject option distinction here.
Okay.
My job is a place where I make a living where God
she's an educator. That's where she makes a living.
The kids are to come to school to learn math, science, and reading. They ain't there to learn little 4-year. Why are we teaching little 4-year-old sex education?
Well, some call it sex education. Some call it social education. Is education. My thing is this. Okay, I don't want my child going to a school where they teach that. So I pick a school where they're not teaching that. That's my choice as a Christian. Right. But as a Christian, I cannot force it on all other children. Some of those children go to that school are Muslim. Some of those children are Buddhist. Some of those children come from atheist families. And, and you don't want the public. That's where the choice comes in. When you send your child to a faith-based school, it's not fair for you to say, well, because you're an educator. It was like when I worked for the state. Even though I was a pastor, and I knew that the answer that I had for those people came from the scripture, I could not impose God upon those people while I was on that clock. That's not what I agreed to. You put in a bad situation, Black. That ain't right. That ain't right.
Let me say this here. I get sick and tired of every time a parent objects some diabolic policy that the NEA has, the school system has, and then it's an assault attack on where you a Christian did. It's never an assault and attack on the Muslims. They can come there and pray, or the Hispanics, or the Jews.
Religion preference in any school system is supposedly not allowed. I understand what you're saying that certain things go certain things, but at the end of the day, though, yeah, they got the right. That's when you put them in a faith-based school. What school your children go to?
That's why they have.
What school? I want to know what school. I want to know what school your children go to.
That's why they
what school your child go to?
So let me ask you this.
That's right. Your boy going to South Wind over there. Ain't your boy going to South Wind?
No, he go to Germantown.
Germantown. Wait a minute. Germantown. Where they had the Bi-Day parade?
All right. So
did you hear about the Bi-Day parade?
Well, let me explain what
did you hear about the Bi-Day parade where they had Bisexual Day?
Well, let me explain what I told them about that.
What you tell them about that? I just made that up. You lying on the radio.
I'm just telling what I told him about. I'm gonna tell you what I told him about that kind of immoral lifestyle.
What did you tell Germantown about that immoral lifestyle? Let me hear this.
Let me say this. The parents have a right. That's why I like the school choice program, because it gives the parents the right to determine.
That's the same thing. That's the same thing Dr. Griffin just said. That if you choose something different, you can put your child in a faith-based school.
But Dr. Griffin, we don't have to tolerate homosexuality. In the meantime, we don't have to tolerate that. I can say, well, no, I don't want my child to go to a school.
Is that thing you want to tell him, Dr. Griffin?
That's what I told my son. I teach my son the difference between.
You know what? Believe me, I promise you on the Truth Radio show. You do not have to worry about hurting his feelings. But yeah, I'm gonna let you go because I want to talk to Dr. Griffin the moment. I know she want to get you. She just don't want to say the wrong thing. You coming out challenging. You don't know. You picked the wrong one today. She just doesn't want to get you and stuff. But you picked the wrong one.
I'm talking to Dr. Griffin. He interrupted me. I called in and I didn't call in to talk to you. But Dr. Griffin, let me ask you a question. Yes. Now, they got old Sleeper Joe in the race. Joe Biden, the one who like to touch on women. unsolicited. That's Mr. Joe. But Joe voted no.
You talking about the children in the school, the Joe Biden.
No, but Joe voted.
Okay, I got to go black. I got another caller. I got to go black.
You ain't got no another call. You
I got another call. Oh, Q ain't got another caller. I'm finna go anyway. I'm going anyway. Bye. God. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. 901-452-3094 or 901-324-7490. Dr. Griffin, and I know the challenge that you face on that because me as a pastor,
right.
I know homosexuality is sin. I know that that's not what I want my children to be taught when they're going to school. But I also know that for people that are working in the school system, you have to promote the public policy. What about the call and say, what you laughing at?
From Cobass, so that man have an airtight mind.
They want an airtight. So somebody asked him to spell it. He still ain't spelled it yet.
Hold on. Somebody told me I need to flush one again, so hold on.
There you go, and I wonder, I said, now how is he gonna work? Whatever he's saying to a Democrat, lazy liberal, he gonna work that Democrat in there some kind of. He's the black conservative. He calls all radio shows.
Okay.
He considers himself to be the political voice of Memphis, Tennessee. And he has some interesting points sometimes, but he can be he's like Donald Trump. He can be a little bit crude sometimes, but he get on track a lot of times too. Anyway, how do you face that challenge of your faith? But yet doing your job without overshadowing your children with your faith. I know I used to run into that dilemma a lot when I worked for the state, and I had to learn how to balance that.
And I think it is a matter of balance. And I think that when people know your heart, and because this is HARD work, but it's really heart work. People can only fake it for so long. I'm not here 27 years later. I'm the only one that started the turnaround work in 2012 with the same group of people, and I'm the last one there because I didn't choose to do it. I was called to do it. And so I think that you cannot put your personal opinions into it. You have to always understand that children don't know and understand what you believe until you show it to them.
Right.
I might can say I care about you, I want to, I love you, but until you show them,
people don't know how
they
much
really, until you show them how much you care. So I think that a lot of times, what I found in my experience with the challenges that I face is that people can talk a good game. But working with children in particular who've experienced challenges, it's easy to go work at a school where children on grade level. Yeah. They from a 2-parent family, they got computers at home. But guess what? In Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, she says hope is hard. Hope is hard. It's not easy. And when you give people hope, don't expect for it to be easy. I'm simply going to say this. We are hoping children better. Kids are hopeless even in the 4th grade. That's the most hurtful thing that you can see. Somebody who's 9 that's supposed to have this vest for life. But I want to hope and continue to hope that this is going to get better. That's what we got to hang our hat on.
Let me ask you about something. 901-452-3094 or 901-324-7490. Let's take this break for the call, and I'll be right back with you. Friends, this is Pastor Guy. Letting you know that if you're being blessed by the ministry, you can always go to andreguy.com, click on Revelation Christian Center, and you can plant seed by PayPal anytime you like. Also, we come on Comcast Cable Channel 17 every Wednesday at 4 p.m. if you would like to see the ministry. Remember, for all your tree service needs, contact Harvey Williams at 901-270-0830. It's Williams Tree Service, 901-270-0830. And all your urban fashion needs, visit Moses at M&K Fashions, 4696 American Way. God bless, we love you. And if you give us the resources, we'll do the work. Staying with 50,000 watts. Anyway, I'm back. Okay. 901-452-3094 or 901-324-7490. I'll tell Dr. Griffin about all the stuff.
Yes.
It's in this little trail over here. You got a 50,000 watt radio station across the hall. And this station is starting probably this week and next week. Then we'll also be broadcasting on 93.3 FM. So
wow. Okay.
They doing some things.
And now that you've said that, I do want the listening audience to know it's important that they mentor our young children. And some of them don't have adults, positive role models in their lives. And I was just asking you, and you readily said yes, if I could bring some young men and young ladies to a studio to actually see what this entails and how they can actually see it. They think they know what they want to be, but until they see someone who's actually doing it, it doesn't become real. A lot of times people criticize young kids and say, all you want to be is a basketball player or a rapper. But that's what they see the most of.
Right.
But when we introduce them to different levels and real people who do the work, it changes their whole perspective.
It's a rap artist. You produce the music for the rap, country music, R&B. Because you learn the engineer, you learn how to do all the audio and all of that. That's so many different things. That's why, for what my church is at now, my young men, I don't really push them on 4-year education. I push them on vocation. Now, if you want to do it, I just graduated from the University of Memphis in 2015.
Oh, wonderful. Congrats.
Got me a bachelor's degree in organization leadership and paralegal studies.
Wonderful.
Ain't nothing but a piece of paper to go try to get a job.
Yes, that's great.
But if you go to vocational school for 18 months, and you get that air conditioning and heating or that electrician or something, them folks call you in the midnight hour, look here, I need some air conditioning work done, I need to do it real quick. I pay you extra if you come right now. And before you know it, the person going to school for 4 years, when they graduate, they got to go get a job somewhere with that piece of paper. Well, they come to work for you because you've been working on the building while they were getting education. I think that they lost the value. I mean, for me, it's a good answer. Because a lot of young guys that I get, they don't have fathers in the home, or they don't read the best, so we have to work with them when they read and things. And,
absolutely.
And if you can get them to get a skill, it's one thing to have a job, but it's another thing to have a job where you got substance where I can buy my own house.
Absolutely.
I can take my own family on a cruise. They don't take don't take EBT cards on a cruise.
Right.
And different things like that. And so
that's right.
It makes a difference. Like you said, that's still hope.
Right.
Do the kids ever at school, do they ever get into discussions about politics and race and all that?
They do. You know, right now social justice is big. They see a lot of movements and things happening with, Black Lives Matter and everything else that's going on. So our students are very, very, very conscious of the social justice, and we want them to be. One thing I'm going to say right now, and teachers who work in the ASD, and even when I was with Shelby County Schools, I used to tell parents and I tell students, make us do our job. They pay me to teach you. If you're not being taught, let me know. If you're not being led in a positive way, let me know. It's not okay for you not to receive what I'm being paid to do. And so I think when you take that ownership, then people know you're very serious about this and impacting students' lives in a positive way. And so I've been in schools where students have actually said to me, hey, Dr. Griffin, we did this yesterday. You don't want us doing the same work every day, do you? So they're taking ownership of their own work, and they're coming to me telling me, hey, we want an advisory board. Hey, we want to make sure that if we do what we're supposed to do, can we have out-of-uniform passes? Can we have, rewards or days that benefit us? And we would like for them to look like ABCD. Now, we have to come to a compromise, but at least they're taking ownership for their own lives. And that's what we want them to do. We want them to take ownership for who they are and some responsibility in them becoming a better person.
How do you feel about Donald Trump?
Well, we don't talk a lot of politics, as far as parties.
But you never have, nigga. You kill yourself, man.
But what we do talk about is I want them to be a registered voter. And you have a right and a choice to choose who you want. Don't even talk about the person. You have a right to vote and choose who you want. Absolutely. That is your vote. So we do tell them to be, and my mom and dad took me to Glenview Community Center since I was 5 years old, in the little curtain with them. It used to be a curtain in this little square. And so I'm saying to our parents, we're going to have a voters registration drive as well for our parents. Even our high school students, we want to make sure they register to vote and they exercise. In every race, not just the big races, every race.
901-452-3094 or 901-324-7490. Y'all, we got about 15 minutes left in today's show, and I know y'all enjoyed the testimony. I know y'all enjoyed listening to Dr. Griffin. I said, a lot of y'all out there watching, y'all are spellbound at the beauty that she possesses. I tell you, she's a beautiful woman. You're the second most beautiful woman I know. My wife Lisa, number one. I ain't crazy.
Hey, First Lady Lisa.
Amen. Q, you got any questions for Dr. Griffin?
Unfortunately, my kids don't go to the Memphis schools.
Okay.
But okay, how can I put this? What can you do if this, say for instance, we see that study it was on the newspaper about the second graders.
Oh yeah, okay.
Okay.
They sent letters home.
Okay.
75% of the second graders in Shelby County school system, they asking the parent to hold them back a year.
Okay.
Because they're not able to read on a third grade level now.
Okay.
My thing is this: number one, you finna retard a year of my child's education.
Okay.
For them to go back to the same school system with the same school teachers again, they gonna learn different? How did that work? How do you feel about that? You holding 75% of second graders in Shelby County school system finna get their education held up a year.
Well, I haven't seen that letter, and I'm not aware of that, but I do know this. Third grade is the first grade where you take the TM ready test. Now, we do have some kindergarten readiness tests, and we have other tests and benchmarks that we do, grades pre-K through second grade.
Okay.
But we don't want students in the gap to widen. I can say this as we educators by third grade, because all of my work has been in turnaround work. So what has happened with what I see on a daily basis, if students were continuously passed. If they were not on grade level in third, if you were quiet and skated under the radar, they passed you to fourth. So not only do you not have a third grade master it, now you don't have fourth. Then you went to fifth. And so I think the whole premise is not to hold them back a year, but we don't want the gap to keep widening. I even have some students, unfortunately, in ninth grade who might be reading on the second or third grade level. The question is, how did you make it to the ninth grade by being pushed forward? So I don't think it's just so much to hold them back, but it's to intervene and give them extra support, have them come and get extra reading tutoring, or, really addressing the root cause of why. Not that you can't read. Why can't you read? There are basic skills to reading comprehensively.
Right.
So we need to find out what it is.
What you said, I know the truth of the use of the word you said, the benchmark test.
Correct.
Now that they haven't mastered that on the benchmark test.
Absolutely.
And my thing is though, and you're right, because by the third grade, if they have not mastered that, then everything else is going to be like a domino effect.
Right.
It's going to be just basically you're going to get socially promoted and pass through the system, and you graduate and you read on a sixth grade level.
And we want to stop that and help our students close the gap. So the longer the gap exists, the harder it is to close.
But now me, the child,
right,
it's still going to have me where instead of me graduating when I'm 17, I'm graduating when I'm 18. I don't want nobody calling me slow.
Well, you could now.
No children check children that fail.
They do, but now we have a lot of supports in place. We have online learning, virtual school, so you can actually take classes online, and you can actually skip grades, and you can go to summer school. We have some systems and some things in place.
Oh, well, you can catch back up.
Absolutely, you can catch back up. But we don't want you to graduate on time and you're not ready. I'd rather for you to be a year behind if that's what it takes. For when you get out in 18 and you can read.
Exactly.
Because see, this is what I see. I'm an adjunct professor at the University of Memphis, and so I teach a night class.
I was going to bring it up. I noticed every kind of school students, when they come to the University of Memphis, they have to take remedial classes.
Right, and we want to stop that. We want to make sure that your diploma means that you can compete globally, college level work. And remember now, it's not just you taking remedial courses. They cost the same as regular courses.
Yeah.
So you could be as much as $25,000, $30,000 in debt and not have classes that count toward your degree. We want to stop that. And so we want to do that early, and we want to intervene so that when we graduate students, that they are ready. And that your high school diploma means you are ready.
Back in the old days.
Yes.
901-452-3094 or 901-324-7490. Yeah, seriously, when I went to Craigmont High School from 77 to 79,
okay,
there were only 88 blacks over there at Craigmont. They busted us from Hubbard, Golden, and Norman.
Oh, wow.
They're like 500 and some whites.
Oh.
And but now, the academics over at Craigmont, my last year at Craigmont was harder than my first year at Lemoore academically.
Wow.
People would come from all over the city. To go to the planetarium, even before Craigmont, Hollywood Elementary and Cypress Junior High School. Okay. We might have had the best books and everything, but we were serious. We had teachers that were serious about education. Principal Barber and Coach Holly, and they'll get with you with that passion out there. No cute guy. So what you got, Q?
It's the black conservatives. You want to hear from them again, or you want what?
You're going to send it to, let's see.
Well, before he comes on, I do want to say that, as you said, old school, I absolutely want to give a shout out to all of the teachers, and especially retired teachers. I thank you so much for your commitment, for your sacrifice. I know personally and professionally and even financially, you sacrifice for all of us who are sitting in seats that we even can experience amount of success, any amount of success, and it was because of you. So in an effort to make sure that many of our young teachers and our early teachers in their careers, I have created a retired teachers cadre. And I want to recruit retired teachers to come in and mentor our first, second, third year, and even some of our veteran teachers that haven't experienced what it's like to really own. When I say own, really own not only just the learning of a student, but you are actually modeling what you are expecting from our students. And so I can pay, and we can pay in the ASC $118 a day to retired teachers. You can work 90 days, and it will not affect your retirement. So I am calling all retired teachers. I need you in the Achievement School District. Our students need you to be role models. We need you to hold them accountable, and they are looking just for someone that they can actually build relationships. What we had when I was a student over 30 years ago in high school was we had great relationships with our teachers, and whatever we needed, we were able to get it. And so I'm looking for retired teachers to help us do that.
$118 a day.
Yes.
$118 a day, y'all. Y'all send it through the Truth before I get out of here. Let's see what he wants.
AchievementSchoolDistrict.org. Please go to AchievementSchoolDistrict.org or Google Sharon Griffin or go to the website, and I promise you, I will definitely respond to you immediately.
And I'm going to make sure she leaves a flyer on the radio station, so if you call back later, we get it to you.
Okay.
All right, hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
Well, I sure hope that $118 is not coming from the taxpayer and that they get it from the teachers' union.
It's retired teachers. They deserve it. They have a skill set.
I hope they get it from the teachers' union dues to pay for it and not out of...
You don't want the teachers to make no money.
Yeah, I don't want the taxpayer to pay for that.
I hope they put your son teaching over there at Germantown on food stamps and see how you sound when you say that kind of stuff. What you want? What you call back here for? What you got?
You do. You know, I'm sitting here listening to her about trying to mentor these kids. Mm-hmm. Really, 15 years ago, maybe a little bit more, maybe 20 years ago, Sleepy Joe, 1994, was on the Senate floor.
Hey, man, bye, Black, bye.
I got a question.
Yeah, it was a question, man. There you go.
I tell you short.
Well, I wanted to ask him, he said he wanted the union to pay for this. Is he asking unions to pay for incarcerated adults? Because if we don't fix it now, guess what? We're going to pay later. And I'd rather fix it now. It is not free to house a person who's made a bad choice and unfortunately was caught.
Dr. Griffin, you're an educator, right?
Absolutely.
You know what the word reasonable means, right? Are you deeply aware what the word unreasonable means? You've just been dealing with a call that was unreasonable.
Right, okay. I just want people to know we're going to fix it now or we're going to have to fix it later. But we are going to have to fix it.
And then, in the walk that you're making, you're going to face challenges.
Yes.
Because anytime you're trying to help the least of these, or you're dealing with the bottom, what they consider to be the bottom of the barrel.
Absolutely.
I consider that to be the cream of the crop, because at one day, that was me.
Absolutely.
And that's where I came from, and if God saw through the world, to all of the isms that I came from, that I can have hope and opportunity. That's what I pass on. I don't get caught up in the racist part of it. I don't get caught up in whatever happened yesterday. If I put my focus on making my stand right now, I'm going to make my best place in this America right now.
Absolutely.
We can make it.
We can make it. And I'm going to give you a scenario that I tell people often. I taught biology, physics, and chemistry, so I love to give analogies and visuals so kids can understand, because science is really not that hard. They just, early on, we got to introduce them to it. If you think about a brown paper bag, and you think about how fragile it is, if you put all of the cans that are heavy in the bottom of the bag, and you carry it from the top, you put your high performing and all your other people who are supposed to be on grade level at the top, and you pick that bag up from the top, what's going to happen to the kids at the bottom? So what do we need to do in order to move that entire bag somewhere? Don't we need to wrap our arms around the heaviest part of the bag to carry it to where it needs to go? So when you think about the heavy lift, you won't crush them bags. No, you put your arms. Look, you put your arms around the bottom. And what I tell people, if we don't wrap our arms around kids who need the most help, it's a heavy lift. I wrap the kids, but you gotta put your arms. You gotta put your arms around it. I appreciate you. Absolutely. We got about 2 minutes. Go ahead and tell me what you want to say. Thank you so much for coming. Well, what I want to say is public schools still work. Public school education still works. We cannot give up on our children. We cannot give up on our teachers. It's hard work, but it is possible. And all I'm asking is that you all visit a school, and all of the negative that you see on TV, that is not what happens in schools. There are 199 great stories that never make the news that happen on a daily basis. I still believe it. I'm still going to perform like hope is the goal, but I also know this. Whether your bar is high or low, our children are going to rise to meet those expectations. And I choose to keep mine high. Amen. And y'all know me, I'm school choice. But I think that I would be derelict in my duty and not bringing somebody like Dr. Griffin on here, like I told you. Even if the Shelby County school system is bad or has its problems, that don't mean all of them are. There are schools that are excelling. I know some charter schools that are doing a great job. She's doing a great job. What she's doing is that when you take the ones at the bottom 5% and you elevate them to the 25%, that's what you're asking for my child to be educated. My thing is this, as a parent, use your choice to get involved and find out if the school is working, get your child there. If they don't, put pressure on them. At the end of the day, let God be God. I love you. God bless you. We'll be back in here tomorrow. We can talk politics then, Black. Bye. Thank you. You're welcome.